Shalom. I am Rabbi Michael Panitz, speaking to you from the pulpit of Temple Israel of Norfolk, Virginia. This week I'd like to speak to you on the subject of public enemy number one, Abram, son of Terach. Israelite Jewish history begins with an exodus, but not the exodus of our people from Egypt. An earlier exodus is our starting point. The exodus of Abram, as Abraham was first known, from Mesopotamia. The call of Abram creates the conditions for the emergence of our people and our faith. And I'll quote the first two verses of Genesis 12. The Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your land and your birthplace and your father's house to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. You shall be a blessing." Why did God call Abram to leave Mesopotamia? The Bible does not say. The rabbis fill in that gap with an imaginative sidebar story focused on Avram's monotheism, and more particularly on the difficulties Abram encountered in trying to live by his radical faith. According to the story, Abram smashed the idols in his father's shop when he was yet a boy. And as a consequence, he was hauled before Nimrod, king of Mesopotamia. The story continues. "Let us worship fire," Nimrod said. "Let us rather worship water, which quenches fire," Abram said. "Fine, let us worship water," Nimrod said. "Let us rather worship the clouds which bear the water," Abram said. "Let us then worship the clouds," Nimrod said. "Let us worship the wind which disperses the clouds," Abram said. "Let us worship the wind," Nimrod said. "Let us worship human beings which can stand up to the wind," Abram said. "You are just bandying words, and we will worship nothing but fire," Nimrod said. "Behold, I will cast you into it, into the fiery furnace, and let your God, whom you adore, come and save you from it." At this point, the story continues. God works a miracle, saves Abraham from the fiery furnace, and at that point says to him, "Go forth, time to leave this land." The importance of that story, which is a very famous rabbinic midrash story, is not any journalistic accuracy. The point of it is a broader one that we often miss, and this is the point. Monotheism in that day and age was politically subversive. That's why Nimrod, in the story, doesn't simply sentence Abram, to whatever penalty would have been appropriate in recompensing the value of the property he had destroyed in his father's idol shop. In refusing to worship any one of the state-sanctioned idols, Abram was challenging the legitimacy of the entire establishment, political as well as religious. In Mesopotamia, before and during the time of Abram, kings boasted that their legitimacy came from the gods. The Sumerian king list of the time of Shulgi in the 21st century before the Common Era begins, quote, "when kingship came down from heaven." In other words, the kings were the direct successors of divine kings. According to the pagan theology of the Mesopotamian kings, the gods did not merely authorize them. They also guided them with specific instructions. Consider, for example, the claims of King Samsu-iluna, the successor of the famous Hammurabi in the 18th century, and I quote, "Marduk, the chief god of his land, of Babylon, gave me, Samsu-iluna, all the lands to shepherd. Indeed, he instructed me in a grand fashion to bring about the settling of the pastures of the land and lead forever his widespread people in peace." And when the same king rebuilt the city wall of the city of Sippar, he boasted that, quote, "Enlil, king of the gods, commanded that the wall of Sippar be rebuilt, and then the god Shamash joyfully summoned me, Samsu-iluna, and gave me that order." That was politics and religion mixed in their society. The rabbinic story of Abram besting Nimrod in debate and then surviving a judicial execution ordered by Nimrod may not be history, but it is an echo of history. It reminds us that the worship of the one God, maker of heaven and earth, undercut not only the worship of other gods, but also the claims of the rulers of Mesopotamia to legitimacy. In refusing to worship any of the gods of their city-state, the Avram of the Midrash, of the rabbinic imagination, was making the statement that the rulers of those city-states based their legitimacy on a mere fiction. They were actually only tyrants. So Avram left and went to the land of Canaan. Were conditions any more hospitable for monotheism in the land of Canaan? Canaan, as we call it? Polytheism was the order of the day in that land as well. However, the society was not so thoroughly subjugated by the various city-states as was true in Mesopotamia. There were territories outside the limits of city-state control where Avram could live in peace, conduct civil relations with his neighbors, and walk his unique path. In his native Mesopotamia, Avram was public enemy number one. But in the land of Canaan, he was able to begin the spiritual path that ultimately created who we are. May we, like Father Avram, have the courage to walk our talk. Shabbat Shalom.